All right, in the previous lesson we learned about pseudo classes. I showed you how to change the color of links. But here I'd like to show you how to use one of those effects on things other than links. So what I've done here is that I've created a page. Here it is, you can see it over here. I have some text. Here's a box below that will change when you mouse over it. And then I made a yellow box with a black border, and there's a yellow background and brown text. You notice it is not changing yet. That's because we haven't applied the effect yet. So here we have the HTML and the CSS. Here's the paragraph explaining what the box is, and here's the actual div, the actual box. Notice that I've given it a class called change, and that class is up here. And I've set the width to 400, the height to 250, the padding to 25. But the ones I'd really like you to pay attention to are the border, which is 6 pixels solid and black, the background color, which is yellow, and the text color, which is brown. So once again, a black border, a yellow background, and brown text. And so that's what you see right here. So how do we get this to change when we do a mouse over? Well, once again, we use a pseudo class. So this can be applied to really anything you want. It can be applied to a tag like h1, to a class, to an ID, or to a tag that you create. So I'm going to say the same thing as before, dot change, but I'm going to put the colon here, so we get the pseudo class, and I'm going to say hover. So now whatever I put in here will change whenever I hover the cursor over it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the border is still 6 pixels. You don't want to change the size of something when you hover, because then everything starts to expand and contract and it looks bad. But I'm going to change the style of the border to double, and I'm going to make the color of it dark red. There we go. Then I'm going to change the background color, and I'm going to change that to orange. And then I'm going to change the color of the text, and I'm going to make that white. So now, because I've used hover, and you can use hover for almost anything that can be seen on the screen, now if you put your cursor over that object, over this div, then the border will change to a dark red double border, the background color will change to orange, and the text color will change to white. So let's check that out. So I've just reloaded the page, and if I bring my cursor over that box, there are the changes. You see? Just like that. So that's kind of a neat effect. All right, so you've learned how to do that. Let me try one more. I'm going to come back here, and notice, by the way, in the hover, I did not say the width, height, or padding, and that's because I didn't want to change those. So anything that you don't want to change, just leave it out of the hover. You only have to put in the hover the things that you want to change. So one of the things I want to do is make let's see, a transform, and that transform will be rotate. We've done this before in class, and that'll be 3 degrees, and because I'm using Safari, I need to create one which is WebKit. There we go. And so now, when we hover over, then that box will rotate by 3 degrees. And let's try that also. So I got to reload it here. And now you can see it's rotating. So there we go. And so you've got a little bit of movement there. All right. Now, you could say that this is animation, but it's a very rough kind of animation. The change is sudden. It's complete. There's nothing that goes between one and the other. However, you can change that. There's a way to add animation to it, a much smoother animation. And this is something called transition. Now, it used to be that you needed to put the WebKit and the Moz and all the other kinds of variations on this, but at least with the browsers that you can download today, pretty much all of them, except for Safari on Windows, and almost nobody uses that, will use this quite smoothly. If you want to put WebKit transition, you can do that as well. Now, transition means that it will change smoothly between the regular and the hover. So instead of just going suddenly from background color yellow to background color orange, it will instead, with the transition, make a smooth change. So I'm going to say the transition will be 2 seconds, and it will affect everything. You can, if you want, just say which one it'll change, like only the color or only the background color or only the border. But if you say all, that means that all of the changes will take 2 seconds. So now I'm going to do that. I'm going to go over here and reload. And now you'll notice that when I mouse over, it's a much more gradual change. You'll notice the border changes suddenly, but everything else takes time. You'll notice, however, that the transition only works one way. The transition animation only works when you mouse over, but when you take your cursor away, it just suddenly goes back to the previous setting. And that's because if you want the transition to go both ways, you should take that transition and put it in both the original and the hover styles. So now we do that and we reload, and so now it should make the change slowly both ways. There you go. Now you'll notice that I made it 2 seconds for both of them. You can change that. You can make it 1 second or even 0.5 seconds. So this should change very quickly when I hover over it and a little bit less quickly when I hover off of it. So I'm going to reload and zoom in, and boom, look at that. See, it's a little bit faster when I mouse over, a little bit slower when I take the hover off. And that is how to apply animations. Now I want to warn you, these are fun, these are cool, and there's a lot more that you can do with these over time. But don't go too crazy with them, because if everything on your page is changing colors and jumping around, people are going to be distracted. It doesn't look too good. But using this just a little bit here and a little bit there can create some really, really cool effects. And that's it for this lesson.